I got nailed.
40,
Yesterday, yes.
46 miles.
Mr. Michigan over
We
here.
did 46 miles.
I know.
yesterday.
Well, we put Buck Spring out all the time.
Down to Seal Beach.
Is it open? So is the trail open?
It is
Yeah.
open, yes.
Bird.
And they've cleared out the.
So they just open it up, or they had, or has it been open now, or has it
It's been
really-
open for about a week.
live.
Okay, good.
We're live.
Yeah.
Okay.
They cleared out the homeless encampment. So
Okay.
We are live. So, good evening. Good evening. Good to see you again. Beautiful night.
I just get kind of like
I'm really glad to be here.
even just on a quote.
I always enjoy these talks. I learned so much. Really wonderful.
Pleasure. Pleasure. And what are we going to speak about tonight?
I guess this is my turn, and I thought we'd talk about the Eucharist, especially given that so many of the members of St. Philip's have not been able to go to Mass, but have only been able to make that spiritual communion. What can we say about that? And can we decide whether or not spiritual communion is good enough? That's the question. I have some views on that from personal experience. Having gone through this now almost 8 weeks. We talk about quarantine, which comes back from the old French word for 40 days. We're well past 40 days now. I can't wait for it to be over.
Well, I can't imagine going into September, October, when some people in the governor's office.
do you know you have a dead squirrel there?
It happens. It's a long story.
Hey, you guys are.
Okay, so we're on.
Goodbye.
Bye. Is that a moral issue or no?
For us, not really.
Weren't you the one saying that your mother, growing up, your mother didn't want the brothers shooting squirrels because she couldn't eat them?
Well, she didn't like to fix the food, so it was. She said, "Okay, but we had this rule: if you hunted it and you killed it, you had to make use of it." Mm-hmm. So we would have big coonskin hats or have squirrel tails, and then we would have to eat food. But she didn't try to make the squirrel meat tender. I'll just leave it at that.
I'm going to be traumatized by the time we finish tonight, looking the whole time at that poor, innocent, little, sweet.
Do we have the prayer tonight?
I think it's my turn. I'll step up. So, all right. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit.
Amen.
Lord Jesus, thank you for giving us your body and blood in the Eucharist. Thank you for always letting us know what the truest and deepest friendship is, and especially for sharing us some sense of the mystery of love among Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. In you, our hearts are at rest. Amen. Father, Son, and Holy Spirit.
Amen.
Well, you have a question.
When I get tired, I can't guarantee you how my mind is going to work. I can either be really tired or everything's going to be amusing to me.
Okay, well, I'm wearing something special tonight, and this brought back some great memories because, as I mentioned earlier, when I was 5 or 6, I had 2 little 6-shooters, and with a cap gun, and I had my robbers and my bandit mask, and I also had a cowboy hat. And I always wanted a white cowboy hat because the guys with the white hats were the good guys.
Good guys.
Yeah.
But that would be a little bit politically incorrect today, wouldn't it?
Oh, I don't know. Hey, you just spoiled my day. That's no. It was all about
A gun, using a plane with a toy gun? How terrible that is.
Did that influence you to want to use guns as an adult?
Oh, it must have totally just deformed your character. And we're seeing the results right now.
Luckily there aren't too many people here, so he turned out to be a serial guy. It'll be a small number.
Well, it's I don't think it had any huge impact on my character one way or the other. but I will say this, it just as a minor point. I think when you're properly trained with firearms, and that was later in life. These were toy guns, but our family was a hunting family in northern Michigan. But when you're trained with firearms, you have a lot more respect for life, because you know that you're responsible for protecting life, not taking it. That's a good lesson to learn.
I gotta know. When I put on my toy gun and my hat, I also had a cowboy name. Did you have a cowboy name?
I didn't. What was yours?
Dan, Cowboy Dan.
Cowboy Dan.
Sheriff Dan.
Okay.
I don't know why Dan. I just thought it sounded, that time I
Dan
thought,
the man.
somewhere between 5 and 10, I thought it sounded like a cowboy name.
Huh. Okay.
Throw on my guns, climb the walnut tree, and sit up there and look for bad guys.
Well, I remember the morality tales that were embedded in these cowboy TV shows at the time. The Rifleman, Gunsmoke especially was a classic for a long
Valley.
time.
The Big Valley.
The Big Valley, yes.
Big Valley.
Well, our students probably aren't watching this. I wouldn't start my weekend homework till Sunday night at 10. Because my dad watched Bonanza.
Bonanza's another one.
And then,
Yeah.
the Big Valley. And if I started my homework at the same time, I could watch Bonanza with him in the Big Valley and try to finish homework by 11. And then to bed.
Those were classics.
And they had an uplifting vision of the human person, in addition to being fun and telling great stories.
But again, they were morality folks.
Yes, of course. Yeah. So, well, to get to the topic, there have been, 1 billion Catholics around the world have not had the benefit of the Eucharist for now 2 months or so.
March 15th.
So it's almost 2 months. The clergy, of course, still are able to say Mass and so still have the benefit of the Eucharist. But for those of us who have not had that privilege, that great gift, we've had, and just speaking for myself, it has been an extraordinary journey, something that I never would have anticipated. There's been the live stream masses, and the first couple of live stream masses were kind of exciting because you could be there, you could hear the word, and I actually knew some of the priests who were saying Mass at the time, so that made it kind of special. And then a couple weeks after that, it was a little less special. I kept thinking, okay, I'm taking this all in, but something's missing. And then for the last couple of weeks since then, it's gotten from something's missing to this is, in a certain way, I almost hate to say it, it's a little unpleasant. Because as I described to someone earlier, it's almost like having that cold glass of water that's being shown to you and offered to you, but as soon as you approach to receive it, it backs off. And you can never get to it.
Especially when it's 110 degrees outside.
Well, today's a hot day too, so that cold water really. I'm fine.
I'll tell you how I know it wasn't this time, but I, in the past, tried to watch a Mass on TV, either on EWTN or I forget that other station in Spanish, but it wasn't Guadalupe Radio, but
Sendero or
in any case, they'd have one.
Sembrador.
Yeah, thank you. But I had the hardest time paying attention to anything. You notice everything. He doesn't care. He acts like he doesn't care about the prayers. He does, but just what are you talking about or whatever.
Right.
And so easy to get up and walk away. But if I'm there in attendance, none of that matters.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care if the homily's good or bad. Yeah, I don't care what his voice sounds like, because I'm there with him. Yeah, part of the whole thing, and it's amazing what a difference it makes to watch it on TV, and that all becomes important. The TV's for entertainment.
TV is for entertainment. That's right.
And
We are our experience. We are bodily creatures with five
Yep.
senses.
Yep.
And the church takes all of those senses in a way to help us to become closer to Christ.
Yep.
The incense, the statues, just the altar itself, what you hear, the word, all of that is combined to create that experience of unity. And we are missing that.
Yeah, and it doesn't, like you say, for me, it doesn't matter what he's like, because he's still there in persona Christi. And what he's doing at the altar is
Miraculous.
yeah, highest significance there could be. And so everything else is extra. Get a good homily, it's like icing on the cake.
Yes. Well, Thomas Aquinas talks about the Eucharist as being the source and summit of the sacraments, the faith, Jesus present. And I guess what I'd like to ask you, what should we be doing in this day, since we don't have the Eucharist, and I think probably more than ever we can really understand just how important the Eucharist is for Catholics. Why its absence?
Well, most dioceses in the United States, even New York City, have allowed the churches to deal with it. And so what they've seen is many, many, many people are spending more and more time before the Blessed Sacrament. Now, unfortunately, in Los Angeles, that option has not been given. And so it's really difficult. In the other dioceses, at least, you can adore him, and you're in that real presence. For me, St. Augustine talks about the more we desire something, the more our heart grows. I think we all should spend 5-10 minutes a day just desiring the Eucharist, and use that to expand our hearts so that we never, ever, ever, after this experience, take it for granted. Because, and I hope this doesn't sound too judgmental, but in some parishes, if I had a mass cam and you saw what I saw, you know, the Lord be with you. Oh, lift up your hearts. Way too heavy. You know, it's just like, are we going to wake up and, you know, body of Christ, amen, and they're looking at, you know, I'm going, whoa. So maybe we can have a renewal of our belief in the real presence and this desire for it. So I would encourage everybody, spend 5 minutes a day to, what is it to you and how much you desire it, and allow your heart to expand, and that desire to expand, as Augustine says.
It's absolutely true about what you see when you're looking out there. But part of that is the fault of the clergy also, because it's so easy to fall into the trap of seeing the Eucharistic prayer as just words. I got to get to and forget I'm talking to the Father. This is a prayer. It's not just words. It's a prayer, and I'm offering it to the Father, and that's my conversations with Him. You know, change this bread and this wine in the body and blood of your Son by calling down the Holy Spirit, sending the Holy Spirit upon it, and then the rest of the prayer, all of it is addressed to the Father. And that's the first thing I think of is, okay, remember who you're talking to. Right?
Remember who you're talking
You're
to.
just not reading words to people. Remember who I'm talking to. And so, you know, it bothers me when I hear it occasionally. Even the consecration. Remember what you're doing. It's not just a movement. It's not just remember what you're doing. So, you know, you can't blame people if they respond in the same way.
Well, that's part of the beauty of the liturgy itself. Whenever someone points to, well, it's a layperson problem or it's a clerical problem, it's always both.
Yeah.
Because the liturgy is a conversation with God with the people and the priest together.
Yep.
It's not something that the priest does by himself.
Yep.
But too often we think about it, and we can get in that bad place of seeing it as a performance that the priest does, and then we become passive. And when you're passive, you're really ripping yourself off.
Yeah. When you ask what should we do, what should people be doing, you should be writing right now to the Archbishop, to the Chancery, to the Governor, saying, you know what, or to our Chancery, you cannot sit silent and just let the Governor say that religion is not essential. It's on the same level as the hair salons and nail salons and everything else. And just, you know, it can just be a private devotion in your own home or in your own room. That's not who we are, and our leaders have to know that, no, we understand this, that we are a community. We have to meet as a community of faith. And we're not going to wait till September or whenever we open the churches.
Mm-hmm.
Unacceptable. The fact that our politicians don't find religion or faith meaningful doesn't mean they can impose that on us.
Amen.
So people should start writing letters.
I think there has to be a voice to be heard in this. There's been a lot of patience, assuming that the leaders would get it and act in our best interests.
Yeah.
But when that doesn't happen, we've got this fundamental right to petition for our grievances.
Yep. You know, people were patient till March 31st. Then, okay, April 15th, people were patient again. May 15th, if it gets extended beyond May 15th, I expect to see many people run out of patience.
Yeah, that's the definite impression that I get. They're up to here.
Well, I noticed it driving over today. The freeway is starting to get a lot more crowded. And I think people are just starting to say, you know what? We can follow the rules. We understand what the risks are. We can handle this safely. And it's time to get on with life. And that the important part of life, the vital part of life, is to be able to go to church and worship.
Yeah.
Well, within that, though, the theological question, the heavy question is, Protestant churches, many of them don't have the Eucharist. They have something else that is bread and wine as a symbol. And I've always kind of scratched my head on that because when Jesus says, "This is my body, do this in memory of me," that's pretty clear.
He who eats my flesh and drinks my blood.
Well, you know, theologically, they take that whole passage from John 6 that talks about it, and that one line when you know, you misuse that the flesh is useless, the spirit that gives life. And they say, see, that means the whole thing is spirit. Read it again. That's what it says.
Unless you eat my flesh and drink
Yeah.
my blood.
And so for me, this quarantine time has highlighted more than ever the distinctive gifts that the Catholic Church has. It's centered upon the Eucharist and centered upon the absence right now.
You know, as I'm going to tell you that, and we'll get back to the
Okay.
next part, but this became so clear to me when I was in seminary, the difference, the significant difference with Protestant services and Catholic, because we had this thing we did every year called InterSem. It's probably still going on. I don't know if you've heard about it while you're teaching at seminary, but it was Jewish rabbinical students, Protestant seminarians, primarily from Fuller, and then Catholic seminarians. And we would meet for a 24-hour period at a Jewish camp up in Malibu Hills, and there would be a topic on the table. And we would have groups mixed from, with Protestant, Jewish, and Catholic in it, and you would discuss the questions from the topic over those 24 hours and talk to the group. But part of it was that each group had to put on a typical service for everybody so we could see each other's services. For the Jews, that would be easy. One of their synagogue services was easy. For the Catholics, it was easy. We did Mass. The Protestants had such a hard time with it because they have so many different traditions, and so, from Fuller they were coming in from I don't know how many different denominations and trying to figure out how do we put all this together to say what's a typical Protestant service? There is no typical Protestant service. And so one of the years I went there, it was, I don't know, like a pale imitation of the Mass. Not exactly. They had bread and wine, and a lot of preaching and so forth. And they were constantly qualifying and saying, well, part of this is from this tradition, parts from this tradition, part, and as they went along. So anyway, I appreciate that their effort. They used King's Hawaiian bread, and when it was all over, after everybody's having, if you'd like to receive communion with us, blah blah, and then it's over, and the bread is there, and one of them says, "We have all this bread left over. Anybody want to help us eat it? I don't want to throw it away."
I remember going to a similar service, and what we walked up, and it wasn't exactly a procession, but it was kind of a line, and then you get a little plastic cup with some grape juice, and then a little piece of bread in a little plastic cup again, and you took it back to your seat, and then you would consume it.
Well, even all the symbolism, to understand the symbolism of the priest who gives the Eucharist in the name of Jesus. It's people don't take the Eucharist; it's given.
It's a gift. Yes.
And it is given from Christ Himself as an act of love and confidence and trust.
Even the prayers of the Eucharistic prayer, I find it so significant that, Lord, what you've given us, the bread and the wine, we offer to you now.
Yep.
To be changed in the body and blood of your Son, so you can give it back to us to share His life. The exchange of love that goes on there, recognizing that it's a gift. The bread and wine itself is a gift to us, and rightly what we do is offer. It's like the offering of Abel, offer it to God, and then given back to us after it's transformed to our life.
But Pew Research and some of the other big research groups have found that barely 30% of Catholics believe in the real presence. And if we were able to help people understand that Jesus is present, body, blood, soul, and divinity, it would change our church.
It
We'd
would.
never be the same.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that's again part of as you look for, okay, why is that so? I think you can look at both the laity and the clergy on that, because when something is presented to you, when you're given this, you're made this gift over and over again, and it seems so routine. It's easy to take it for granted by both clergy and the lay people. And then there's not enough education that's going on to remind people of what is exactly happening. I remember something in the pews sometimes. Some of the the masses I remember most are when the priest makes it almost like a quasi-educational experience. Why am I doing this right now? And not slowing down the mass reading, but just taking a part of it. Why do we have the word? What's the Eucharistic prayer really about? Why do we have communion? Why do we begin by asking for forgiveness of sins? All these parts of the Mass have so much value and knowledge behind them, because it's from God, and it's 2,000 years of greater understanding.
But in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, we went through some really difficult confusion. I remember visiting different seminaries in the 70s, and I went to one place, and I remember we sat down for the Mass, and we all told to sit down in these bean bags, sit or lie down.
Okay.
And sort of had Mass, and then the priest gave the chalice around, and the chalice came back, and half of the precious blood was left. And he said, "Come on, guys, take a good swig. Be men." And I just remember it, my heart broke. I mean, we were discerning the priesthood. Be men and take a good swig. making. And it really shook me up. And it helped me discern that that was not the place I needed to go to enter the seminary. But back in the 70s, there was a lot of confusion. And I don't know if we've recovered it.
You know, if I could start from scratch and redo this, I don't think that I would have little parishes everywhere and would follow. Got to make sure you hear this right. Protestant model of like Saddleback, with a lot of people. How many people come at a time to a service there? Thousands. And you know, we would do the same thing. Less places, less masses, but thousands. And you bring your Bible. And we would do the opening rites and scripture. And then we would take 45 minutes for significant teaching out of the Bible. We would do education. And then have the liturgy of the Eucharist. And the whole thing would take an hour and a half, hour, 45 minutes. A little bit longer than we take now. But we would have time to put our teeth into talking about our faith. The problem we have now is the expectation of you better not go over 10 minutes. Or else I'm going to start thinking about leaving, or complaining, or writing a letter, or whatever. And
At least to have one Mass that is known as the hour and a half Mass for those who are hungry for teaching. That would be.
I think that's a great idea. And I also think that you're going to get that kind of pushback at first. Anytime you change anything, that's just our human nature. There's going to be people who resist it. But quality will always win out. And it's the quality of teaching that's there that will get people to say, this is worth spending some time. I think it's worth experimenting. I know you asked the question about where we are. Are we out of the woods yet on this? And I can tell you, Pope St. John Paul II, I think, was the turning point for us as a reaction to the 60s and 70s. And his leadership has brought in a whole wave of priests who are faithful to the church. And I've seen that in the seminarians who are studying right now. They are not there because they don't fit in anywhere else or because they can't think of a job to do. They have been called and they're selected and they're very well formed. Most of them are older, in their late 20s or even in their 30s before they get started. And so they know themselves. They know why they're called. They're not trying it out so much as really embodying what it is to be a priest and exploring that in a very serious way. We got some good priests on the way.
And look how many parishes have adoration. And I just, you look at all the signs, things like that didn't happen in the 70s and 80s.
yeah, it's one of the things we're after. Got the plans. It's a question when we can put it in place to have a 24-hour adoration chapel at St. Philip.
That would be a real blessing.
And
Wow.
and the concept is there. It's been presented to a significant body that I use for advice, and they're all in favor of it. It's just a question of when we can do it. So there's some expense and so forth involved, but it's going to happen.
Yeah. When I was in Atlanta, Georgia, there had been scandals and a lot of problems, and Archbishop John Donahue, the first thing he did in the cathedral, we're going to put adoration. We put an adoration. Then he got all of his clergy together, had a retreat on the Eucharist, and then he said, I want as many churches as possible to have adoration. Well, 10 years later, they had 15 churches with perpetual adoration and another 20 that had day-long adoration. They went from about 6 seminarians to 98 seminarians. Okay? They went from one high school, and they couldn't afford even to keep that up, to I think 4 or maybe 5 high schools. You know, I mean, the people were generous, the generosity, everything. We went from almost bankruptcy to building another 7 or 8 churches.
And where?
Atlanta, Georgia. It was the most dynamic thing in the world. But he said, if we get adoration, we get everything. Because everybody said, you're going to have to focus on money. You're going to have to focus on money. And he was talking to me. He says, everybody wants me to do that. He said, first, we get the adoration, everything else follows. And how many people, have I had who, Father, I'm miserable. I said, do the 40-day challenge.
What's that?
I tell them 15 minutes before the Blessed Sacrament every single day, and you'll never be the same. And I've done it like 7 times, and every single time it's worked. And by the end, it wasn't 15 minutes. By the end, they're spending an hour before the Blessed Sacrament. I don't know why. It's just, I need it for some reason.
So that really speaks to my heart about what we have been missing for nearly 2 months now.
I want to read you something though. Do you know Bob Sherman? He teaches at Caltech. It's funny. He teaches, I think, economics at Caltech. I didn't even know Caltech had economics. But anyway, he sent me this. I just got off the phone with my brother Tom, who's a Jesuit priest in Rome. I was telling him how sad I was there was no daily or Sunday Mass, and that as a result I started to watch daily and Sunday Masses on the internet, trying to make a spiritual communion with the Lord. He said something I was totally unaware of, which I found inspiring. For spiritual communion is no substitute for sacramental communion in normal circumstances. Still, he said that in a situation which you cannot receive the Lord sacramentally, you can actually give more glory to God by making a fervent spiritual communion, since it is the quality of our charity that glorifies God. He cited Aquinas and others for this view. That's what I so anyway, it's the idea of not just watching TV, but when you're doing that, making a true and honest spiritual communion, and open your heart to God. I am so sad that I can't receive you in the Eucharist right now, sacramentally, but spiritually, I'm still there with you.
Those are beautiful words, and I think there definitely is that opening there of one's heart.
Yeah.
But with that, there can be a spiritual dryness too, when everything that the Church has taught us is important. It seems like it's being set aside without taking into account just how important it is.
For no reason. For a reason, coronavirus, but they haven't even given us the option to figure out how we work around and keep people safe and still keep being who we are.
That's the ticket. That's what we need to do. So that, because we are body, mind, and soul.
Yeah.
And so obviously we have to protect our bodies. We have to be safe. But we also have to protect our souls.
Yeah.
And we've been given this great source of grace and healing through the Eucharist. And I can't wait for us all to be together again at St. Philip. I miss the choir. I miss the organ.
You know what it's made me think of, though? Because we just went through this with Pope Francis, with the question in South America of these villages that get Mass only maybe once a year and have to do without the rest of the year. And that question, should they take some married men or married deacons and ordain them as priests with limited faculties so that they can have Mass in those villages? Because as we've gone without for 2 months, they go without for...
It's very difficult for the Church to grow in those kinds of circumstances without the support. But also, are there priests who would be willing to go if they were asked?
Unknown, because the Pope decided that's not the time for this. And so we're at the status quo.
And I spent for 5 years, 2 weeks during the summer, 5 straight years in the middle of the Amazon. And saw 2 things. Number one, you did have fervent communities, even though they only saw priests 2 to 3 times a year. But I think, as I said before at one of these other talks, first time I ever held up the host of the Eucharist, a little girl said, "He's back, Mommy, he's back." And I'll never forget that. He's back. And how beautiful that was. And, even though we were there like one day, they put Jesus in the tabernacle. They would spend 24 hours adoring Jesus in the tabernacle. And then when we left, they would take him out. But I also saw that there were some villages that we stayed in that there were no Catholics. But Protestants had come in. And they were extremely fervent Christians. In 1 or 2 villages, even more than the Catholics. Then you had other villages that had priests once a month. But they weren't living the faith, and they were miserable. It was a fascinating study for me, because, up and down the river, we stopped 1 or 2 days at each village, and the situations were really different.
Well, there's a point about being adapting to the local conditions, and I know there's a big study about this. And there isn't a theological problem about having married men as priests. Right? So it's just been a practice from the church that's been very efficacious for 1,000 years now.
Yeah.
So I don't think that the door is closed on that forever, but if there's a way that we could solve the problem of bringing Mass to people, with priests who are committed,
And I don't know why the Pope decided. I don't know fully, but I think he was just saying it may not be the time for it right now because of the disunity it might cause.
Some people were very offended by it, as though it were theologically a terrible thing, and I probably most people don't realize Peter, the first pope, was a married man.
Yeah, why did Peter deny Jesus 3 times? Jesus healed his mother-in-law.
Ow. Okay, well, we mustn't end on that note, but Father Tony, you get to cure this with a prayer. Okay.
We pray for all mother-in-laws.
Amen.
Oh, in the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit.
Amen.
Oh, Lord, please shorten the time that we're out of church and speak to our leaders, to our politicians, to all people to have good hearts and to understand that our faith in you and our oneness as a community is essential. We have to get back to church. So make this happen quickly, please. Through Christ our Lord.
Amen.